Real Estate Talk discusses the ins and outs of our local housing industry, sponsored by Keller Williams, Spokane.
Well, hello, folks. Welcome to Real Estate Talk, and I am your host, Ken Sachs. A little different this time. We are welcoming you not to our studio, but to my home office, our kitchens, our living rooms. We're at home, as I'm sure you guys are too. So this is new for us, but the show must go on, as they say. So our guest today we have Tanya Tyler, a broker with Keller Williams, Spokane, and our special guest, we have James Young. James is the director of Washington Center for Real Estate Research at the University of Washington. How did I do, James?
Great, super.
Did I say it all? Okay. So thank you for being here. It is a mouthful. And we have a real life economist in the house. Well, he's in his house, but in our house together. So we're going to talk about, what's going on. Of course, we're dealing with the pandemic. We're all dealing with this. Surely it has some kind of impact on our market. Surely there's some idea or projections what lies ahead when this dust settles. So that's what we're going to talk about, folks. So again, thank you for being here. Tanya, you want to say a few words that maybe I didn't say in the beginning about who you are, and then we'll let James say hello?
Oh, you know what? I'm Tanya Tyler. I've been with Keller Williams for 4 years. Very excited to be part of this, real estate talk. I love this because I think that it helps give that information out to a lot of people. And I think that during this time, we definitely have an interesting time, the unknown. And so it's great to reach out to people like, James Young to be here talking about what he kind of foresees. So I'm excited. So thank you.
Good. Thank you for being here. James, let's hear a few words from you.
Well, it's certainly unprecedented times. It's unbelievable what's happening out here. Who would have thought 6 weeks ago that everybody would be in their living rooms? And, everybody had thought that the spring selling season had started early, because January and February saw so much movement and everything. Who would have thought it would have come to a screeching halt at this stage?
Gosh, no kidding. So it's undoubtedly a little early to kind of see the full impact or full effect from this pandemic and what we're dealing with. But James, anything off the bat in the last 4 weeks that you as an economist have seen some interesting trends and like, I got to watch that. What are you looking at? What are you seeing?
Well, the biggest thing is the employment numbers and lending. The employment figures, we have almost record unemployment. A figure I saw the other day is that one economist is projecting the unemployment figure this week to be 25 million. To put that in perspective, during the financial crisis, the peak unemployment was 22 million. And it took several months to get there, more than a few months to get there. We've gone from record low unemployment to surpassing the unemployment levels from the financial crisis in about 3 or 4 weeks. That is something that is unprecedented. That's sort of Great Depression numbers there in terms of how that's working. That's certainly one to watch. It's certainly something to watch in terms of what's going to happen to employment in the future, and whether those people are going to have jobs to go back to, and what demand is going to look like. The other side of it that I'm looking at quite carefully is the lending side of the market. Economists use this sort of phrase, something called crowding out. Think of it this way: there's only so much money out there that is available for people to borrow. Okay. And so if all the corporations in the world decide they need to borrow money, right? Okay, well, they're a pretty good bet. We're going to lend them money. If the U.S. government and everybody else needs to borrow money, okay, they borrow up money as well. And then what's left goes to other riskier sort of lending. So you could say junk bonds, or you could say, really high interest sort of debt instruments out there. And the mortgage market is fairly safe and it's a fairly good bet, but the mortgage market also has its own risks. So if you're looking at the employment situation, they're getting crowded out. It's seen as riskier because of the employment situation and the fact that you've got everybody looking to borrow money. And so if everybody's looking to borrow money, there's less money available to lend out in mortgages. And so they're going to have increased down payment requirements. They're going to have the jumbo market, first-time buyers market are the riskier loans, and that's where you're going to see fewer loans being made, mortgage lending criteria going up to try and make sure that that risk doesn't materialize into a bad loan later on, because they have everyone out there trying to borrow money. So with everybody trying, they've got a lot of customers that want money, and riskier mortgages are going to kind of get left out there a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So those are good trends, both the lending and the employment.
Sure. So the lenders out there, they can pick and choose because the demand. So if the demand is there, I'm going to choose the less year lending transaction, less risk, because I can't.
That's right. You're gonna take much less risk. You don't need to take the risk because the demand for the money is there, and it's an interesting situation. But you had mortgage rates are at record lows again in terms of 30-year mortgage interest rates. You've got 10-year bond rates that are at the some of the lowest levels ever. You've got short-term money. Someone was saying that there's some arms out there. I think I'm trying to remember the terms on them, but you were getting sub 2% arms, and I was like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Good luck qualifying for them is the issue. That's the huge issue. You're going to have stellar credit and everything else to try and get those loans. This is where we're going to have a problem, is that a lot of people without jobs or uncertain job prospects or have been laid off. What's going to happen to their credit?
Right.
You mentioned James earlier. You mentioned, James, earlier that the credit scores are going to the requirements are already going up. I've already seen them on my lender side. And then you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Chase before we were on, and you saw that they were even going up even higher into the credit score, minimum 700. And that's going to throw a lot of our buyers out for a while.
Yeah, 700 as a minimum credit score with a 20% down payment is going to be it's going to be hard for any first-time buyers out there. And in the jumbo market, you're going to have significant equity to bring in order to purchase the home and to qualify for a mortgage that way as well. Think of it this way, though. If you've got a chain going on, if you're trying to sell your mid-market home to move into a more expensive home in the jumbo market, who's going to buy your home in the middle market? If you don't have as many people qualifying for a mortgage, even in the middle of the market, it's going to be more difficult for people to trade up and to trade up into those other homes. So it creates a problem for anyone who needs a mortgage in terms of how it's going to be tightened up.
Sure. Wow. So Tanya, kind of boots on the ground perspective. You're in the market every day, running around with buyers and sellers. Have you seen a shift, a change, any difference with this pandemic?
No, it's interesting because I listed a house last week. I put it up late Friday night. We had already had 4 calls by 9 o'clock on Saturday, and I already had a full price offer Saturday at 4 o'clock. We're talking less than 24 hours that house was on the market. Now, granted, it was right before, like a little bit before the 300 mark, but you're still seeing there was people generated looking to go. I took a buyer out this week and we saw 4 houses total. I was already running into other agents that were out there, and they were looking at the same time frame right before we were, and multiple offers again on a house that I just got into contract. So we're still seeing boots on the ground. We're still seeing that people are still out there. We still have the buyers. Some of the first time home buyers I have heard lost their job. They aren't qualifying anymore. So that's almost like, I feel like maybe shaking out a little bit of the 15-20% of those buyers, but we still have that middle class kind of running solid, essential workers, solid in their job. They've got maybe some money to put down, so they're solid with that, and they've got some closing costs. That's what I'm still seeing.
Sure, that's good. That's fairly consistent with what I'm seeing as well. There's definitely demand, but there are those buyers who now don't qualify. They've lost their job, or they're predicting that they're going to lose their job or have a financial in their household. And there's buyers now who in a contract and now fear a financial future. Now they want out of the contract. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, with that demand, as you pointed to, we still have that coming in from other people that are not in a situation. But it's all very new to all of us and working through this. And it's probably, we don't have a crystal ball, yet we're always asked crystal ball question. We're going to be already somewhat touched on this. Where do you think we're going to be in 60, 90, 120 days? James?
It's going to be interesting, yeah.
Well, it is. And I think that a lot of it depends upon everything. I don't know if you guys remember the old politician Tip O'Neill from way back when, former Speaker of the House. And he had a famous quote that said, "All politics is local." Well, all real estate markets operate the same way. So everything is local.
That's right.
And so you can talk about all these trends with the, mortgage lenders and 25 million unemployed. It's a matter of how your individual market does in relation to what's available there and what the demand is there and what the supply is there. So, the Spokane market has got its own unique characteristics. Within Washington, it's a very unique market. And I think that, looking forward, Spokane has a lot going for it. You've got a lot of the industries there. Supply chain, I think we know from the toilet paper sort of supply issues and everything else. That supply chains matter. And that if you have supply chains all over the world, they're vulnerable to things like this. And Spokane has already had a lot of distribution channels and a lot of distribution companies setting up there to service the entire Northwest. And so I think that the inland Northwest, Spokane, Boise, are set to, outperform still. You're still going to have high fundamental demand from distributors and people involved in the supply chain, providing services to those larger cities. I think you not only have that, the infrastructure you have there is fairly new for supply chains as well. So that's what's going to get used first. It's the most efficient. So I think, there's a lot of demand from those sources. And you still have a lot of demand from people leaving the cities. To the extent that the middle of the market is still there, we have to remember how relative the middle of the market is across cities. And just like we saw before this all happened, you had a lot of people leaving Seattle, a lot of people leaving Portland and California and selling up their expensive homes, paying cash, buying a small multifamily property as well in Spokane, and, supplementing their income and living the lifestyle of the inland Northwest, which is pretty good. I don't think that's going to stop. I think the extent to which you have the middle of the market that hasn't had enough supply for a very long time in every market. So when you look at the middle of the market, you're going to have that supply come on if people try and sell and get out of the cities, especially if they're retired and they're cashed up and they have equity. And they're still going to go to places like Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, and they're still going to go to those inland markets where they can find value, because you can find a lot of really good value there. And All right, say your equity in your home dropped 15%, let's say in Seattle in the mid market. Well, they're still going to have 800 or 900,000 in equity that they're going to bring to bear in Spokane. They're not going to worry about the mortgage market. Those folks are looking for a lifestyle change. I can tell you from being here in Seattle as well that lockdown in Seattle is a little different because your scope doesn't go beyond downtown anymore. Your scope is down to your neighborhood and everything. And with what you hear in the cities and what you see in the cities, when you have a pandemic like this, being out of town sounds pretty good right now. And a lot of people that are stuck in their homes are going to be looking for a bigger property or a different lifestyle than what they had. And I think that's where, you're going to get a lot more people looking in Spokane. A lot more people looking at it just like before.
Good. So, James, you're an economist, and you said that those are some good positive things, not all negative. And I love the reminder that real estate is local. I love that, and that's something, Tanya, that we need to say more and more. With our crew, it's like when they would say the average temperature is 65 degrees. It's 40 here. What does that mean to us? It means nothing. So it's just weather is local, state is local, and I think, that's a huge takeaway. You pointed out positives that I think will help buffer fallout when dust settles. That I'm good for that. Real estate is local. Let's bring it back. Tanya, what do you think?
No, I think James, you've made some really good points. I always say that Spokane is an anomaly. It really is. We're away from the big cities, but we're still a small town in a big city boots. We've got our international airport, we've got stuff here now, and I still see that people can afford come here from Seattle or Portland. They still can afford that. Just Spokane's good living. I hate to say it, but it's like going down to just the roots. We're good living. You can afford to live here. I think the numbers, to go back just a hair on the unemployment, I think those numbers are going to be skewed because they are really high. I mean, I saw something 12, 13% jumping into. I think some of those people will go back to work and some of those businesses won't be there for them to go back, or they're going to be skewed. We're going to have some good solid numbers probably in June to see what this really looks like. So we're just in the beginning stages, but just hearing exactly what you're saying, James, is so beneficial to us. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have probably about 4 minutes left, you guys. We've talked about kind of where we are, what we're seeing, where we think we're going to go. Real estate is local. I'm going to keep saying. What else is there? I mean, we're in such foreign territory. We just we don't know what to expect. But like you said, Tanya, and like I said, we're selling with buyers and sellers, and we're getting the work done. We see some changes here with new construction, not to change the topic, but looking at bringing that back if governor and those folks can had it safely. So there is some positive things to look at and focus on now and forward. So anything else, you guys, in the last couple minutes that we have here?
James?
Well, let's put it this way. I feel like I'm being a typical economist here because I think it was Lyndon Johnson said the only thing he ever wanted was a one-handed economist. Because on the one hand it's this, and on the other hand it's this. And I wish I could give you one hand here and say everything's going to be great, but we really don't know what the shakeout is going to be on this. And all I can say is that I think that Spokane is much better placed than any other area, I think, in the state, given the mix of industry that you have there and the type of industries that you have. I think Spokane is it's good living. I agree with you there, and the demand, I think, is going to stay fairly high. It's just a matter of whether the banks and everybody else is going to play ball.
It's true. Yeah. And where we're going to
Last minute, Tanya.
I just say
left,
good
Tanya,
living. I coined that, James, good living. So just to let you know,
Yep.
it comes from me. Good living.
Yep. Yep. You got it.
I describe people like myself who moved here from Southern California as equity refugees.
There you go.
Because, we can sell those homes, buy Spokane, go forward in a big city. Gosh, you guys, James Young, Director of Washington for Real Estate University. James, I cannot thank you enough for being especially on notice. Thank you.
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you, and stay safe out there.
You too. Thanks, James.
And Tanya Tyler, broker with Keller Williams Spokane, as always, you're wonderful, and thank you for being here. And Williams Spokane, Washington, for sponsoring this show. Keller Williams Spokane to Keller Williams Spokane. And folks, we are at the end of our show. Again, you've been watching talks for host hacks. Please be safe out there, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Keller Williams Spokane.